cyber criminals carry out a sophisticated, targeted ambush, threatening news services nationwide. The end of JobKeeper and an MP in strife, fresh woes for a Prime Minister under siege. Football codes caught in limbo after the Queensland cluster grows. The hit Broadway show Hamilton officially opens, and it's a winner. And Dusty fires the Tigers to a big win as the NRL grapples with an injury overhaul.
This is 9 News with Alicia Loxley.
Good evening. The $90 billion wage subsidy JobKeeper has come to an end, with unions warning it will lead to higher unemployment. It's just one of many troubles for the Morrison government as scandal claims another MP. Here's Nine's political editor, Chris Uhlmann.
Pictures that are etched on the nation's psyche.
And we all remember those really confronting images of tens of thousands of our fellow Australians lining up outside Centrelink, having lost their jobs.
In response, the government threw a wage safety net JobKeeper under most of the Australian workforce.
3.8 million Australians were supported by JobKeeper at its peak.
That money kept businesses like David Meyer's chain of restaurants in Melbourne and Sydney afloat.
We've got 40 staff now that are on JobKeeper. And that's been able to sort of keep the cogs turning in our business.
JobKeeper has cost $90 billion and today the tap is being turned off.
We can't keep spending borrowed money forever.
That makes David Meyer nervous.
We're unsure what it means for business, in particularly consumer spending.
960,000 Australians will lose that support today.
And the unions say now is not the time.
The pandemic's still with us and this is a job killer, and that when you lose people out of jobs, you also lose those skills.
Treasury expects that up to 150,000 jobs will be lost.
Well, there's no doubt that there will be some businesses that will continue to do it tough once JobKeeper ends.
But the Treasurer says other government spending will fill the void and keep people employed.
The unemployment rate will continue to trend down over time.
That remains to be seen.
I think that we're going to see a rise in unemployment for sure, unfortunately, next month.
The government's economic woes pale beside its many other troubles. There'll be a cabinet reshuffle this week and it's dealing with yet another scandal. Queensland MP Andrew Laming was exposed by 9 News for taking an inappropriate photograph of one woman and abusing 2 others online. He's been ordered by the Prime Minister to undergo counselling.
This guy has shown he is not fit to be in the Parliament. He shouldn't be fit to take a salary. He's a creep and he's got to go.
Andrew Laming isn't fit to be a Member of Parliament today.
There is little sympathy from his colleagues.
What he's been doing is completely outrageous, and I'm very pleased that he's going to take some time off.
I'm really appalled by Andrew's conduct. It's our job to call this out.
And his 17-year political career is now over.
Following that conversation with the Prime Minister, he has decided not to recontest the next election.
And it's understood he'll be replaced by a female candidate.
And Chris is with me live from Canberra now. Chris, the Morrison government is in a world of political pain at the moment.
It sure is. A rewind to February and the Prime Minister and Treasurer would have nominated the dismount from JobKeeper and the vaccine rollout as the 2 things that would determine their political fortunes this year. Now the government faces a cabinet reshuffle over 2 allegations of rape and the loss of an MP over his juvenile and offensive antics. In the long run, all pose a threat to the future of the coalition, but it's a fair bet that Scott Morrison would prefer the comparatively mundane politics of the pandemic to the daily horror show of the smut and scandal that has paralysed his governments for 6 weeks now, Alicia.
Yes, indeed. All right, Chris Uhlmann there in Canberra. Well, Brisbane's COVID cluster has grown again and is causing big headaches for all football codes. As Emily Rice explains, with Western Australia forcing all Queensland arrivals to quarantine, pre-Easter travel jitters are rippling across the country.
Brisbane Lions players had planned to fly out of Melbourne and back home this morning after the team's COVID tests.
The Brisbane Lions, who were all cleared as negative, and they might well be returning to Queensland later today.
But with Queensland's coronavirus outbreak escalating, the AFL team has been forced to stay put in Melbourne for now. Their clash against Collingwood, scheduled to be played at the Gabba on Thursday, now likely to be held elsewhere. Similarly, Rugby Union's Queensland Reds, stuck in Sydney after last night's game, uncertain if it's safe to head north. The NRL's Brisbane Broncos also trying to work out how to make it to Melbourne for their game against the Storm next weekend, given COVID testing and isolation requirements.
It's far too early to relax.
Testing queues were again huge across Brisbane as authorities revealed the outbreak has grown to 3 infections.
We have 1 new case, and this man is the brother of one of our 2 latest cases.
This gentleman is perfectly well, fully recovered, and was picked up through our contact tracing process.
Police have also corrected reports that one of the infected men held a party while awaiting a test result. He was in fact isolating at home with 5 flatmates.
Calling it a party is really inflammatory in some ways and creates an impression that's not quite right. The matter is subject to further inquiries. We're not seeing any evidence of any offences.
With many Australians looking forward to Easter getaways, including travel to and from the Sunshine State, anxiety is growing around potential border closures. WA has declared anyone arriving from Queensland must now get tested and self-quarantine for 14 days.
Not great, but it is what it is, I suppose.
One person locks us up for 14 days.
It's not great, but better to be rather safe than sorry, I guess.
The Victorian government, for now, holding off shutting its doors.
So at this stage, we obviously have no plans whatsoever to close borders.
And the leader at the helm of this latest COVID crisis is, for now, remaining calm.
Everyone's doing the right thing at the moment. We're very comfortable with the situation.
Emily Rice, 9 News.
Well, the days of pain drag on for the people who live in the flood-devastated suburbs and townships of Western Sydney. The clean-up seems never-ending and there are still dangers as the water slowly recedes. More from James Wilson.
Falling into the Hawkesbury River early this morning, a series of landslips at the Sackville Ski Park, a stark reminder. The danger isn't over.
We've got caravans and buses about to fall away.
Trevor's outdoor settings swallowed by the subsiding sludge, his bus and possessions just inches from following.
Well, virtually everything I've got's in that bus.
Down the road in Ebenezer, residents had their hands full. Waterlogged possessions lined the streets.
An antique dining room suite and buffet that was my in-laws.
Inside, complete destruction spread across nearly 50 homes.
All our TV and lounge chair was right here. So that's about it. But it's all gone, as you can see. It's all had it.
This was Suzanne Hamilton's street 6 days ago. The water was so high she could kayak to her second-floor balcony. Her and daughter Olivia have lost everything. It's all hands on deck here in Ebenezer. The army is even being brought in this week to help. But given the damage to these homes, it will be many months before residents can return to live here.
Trying to find a rental at the moment, and there's not much around. I suppose we just have to keep sleeping on people's lounges.
James Wilson, 9 News.
The body of a boy who disappeared on a school trip has been pulled from the water off South Australia's Yorke Peninsula. As Harvey Biggs reports, the 16-year-old had jumped into the ocean to help his friend who had slipped on rocks.
Well, the young man's family was here and holding out hope this morning when search resumed at first light. But just a couple of hours later, they were delivered the worst news. Water police had recovered the 16-year-old's body not far from where he was last seen in the water.
It's very tragic. As you see, there was quite a large group from the community here to support it. The family.
Here's Ahmed Al-Farhan from Paralawi, a student at Pinnacle College at Elizabeth East. And his final moments were heroic, say police. He was with a group of 8 other students and a teacher who were fishing here at Browns Beach in the tip of Yorke Peninsula in South Australia when one of the students slipped and fell into the water. He went in after him, so did 2 other students and a teacher. All of them made it out except for him.
The missing person was the first person that actually went in to save his mate. We really see that as a really heroic act to try and rescue his mate, and unfortunately it was to his demise.
The other 4 were taken to a nearby hospital as emergency services rushed here and swung into action, carrying out an extensive air and land search, as well as local fishermen brought in to help out until darkness fell. And tragically, this is the third drowning here at this beach in just over 2 years. Such a horrible thing for the family and for those who witnessed this incident, and a report will now be prepared for the coroner.
The very technology that brings you our news each night is right now under attack by hackers. Whether it's criminal sabotage or the work of a foreign nation is still being investigated. Rarely do we run stories about ourselves, but tonight it's more than a cyber attack on Nine. It reveals a vulnerability nationwide. Mark Burrows reports.
The Weekend Today show off air this morning. It seemed like a glitch, but now the strong suspicion there is something more sinister behind it. Nine's CEO believes the network has been the victim of a cyber attack. It's affecting the network's ability to produce its news and current affairs content.
That cyber attack has impacted our ability to go live to air on the Today Show this morning. So a lot of our Today Show, Weekend Today Show fans were unfortunately unable to see that show.
Emails and editing systems have been hit. Tonight's news is coming out of Nine's Melbourne studio, which so far is able to operate. The hope is that the Today Show tomorrow will be broadcast normally. As engineers and IT specialists try to untangle the issue and come up with a fix, in Sydney the control room TVs told the story. Empty studios and colour bars.
I'm not surprised. Last year alone we had 60,000 reports to the Australian cybersecurity of cybercrime. That's one every 10 minutes.
A cyber attack of this scale on a media company in Australia is unprecedented. Cyber expert Paul Toomey was an advisor to the Australian government.
The sort of people, you just take Russia for instance, there's about 30 cyber gangs working in Russia. They do about $2 billion worth of business every year out of these these types of attacks.
Last year, Russian-backed hackers infiltrated the computer systems of Australian freight company Toll and then demanded ransom money, which was not paid.
We're seeing businesses across the board being hit, from multinational companies all the way through to small non-profits.
Cyber researcher Rachel Falk says cyber attacks aren't limited to rogue nations.
And it can often result in disruption or data theft, which can leave businesses large and small in complete disarray.
It's estimated there are more than 2,000 significant cyber attacks globally every day. And as this attack on Nine has shown, Australia is far from isolated and immune. Mark Burrows, 9 News.
All right, turning overseas now, and suicide bombers have targeted a church in Indonesia on Palm Sunday, leaving at least 14 worshippers injured. A security guard stopped 2 men as they approached the gates on a scooter in Sulawesi moments before the blast. It's unclear whether one or both of the men were killed. More than 100 people have been killed in the deadliest day since the army toppled the Myanmar government. Children are among the victims, with the leader of the country's military junta claiming he would strive for democracy. Michael Genovese has the latest.
Shot in the eye with a rubber bullet, a 1-year-old girl left scarred by soldiers. Patrolling the streets, troops kill indiscriminately. 3 men gunned down on a motorbike. 2 run for their lives. The third lies dead on the curb. The violence marked Armed Forces Day, normally a celebration of military prestige, but things here are far from normal. It's nearly 2 months since the military overthrew the democratically elected government, sparking nationwide protests. Aung San Suu Kyi, the country's leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner, remains locked up. The general leading the coup accusing her of unlawful acts during last November's election. On city streets, protesters remain defiant. A 5-year-old boy and 2 teenagers among those killed. Defence chiefs from 12 nations, including Australia and the US, condemned the army, but those in Myanmar want help.
How many people are needed to show that is a massacre and that is a human atrocity?
Michael Genovese, 9 News.
A man has fallen from a popular lookout. Up next, the delicate winch operation to lift him to safety. And worth the hype, the hit Broadway show Hamilton opens in Sydney.
9 News, brought to you by Industry Super Funds.
There's been a delicate rescue operation at a popular lookout in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney. A man in his 20s was airlifted to hospital after falling several metres. He suffered a serious leg injury and tonight remains in a stable condition. He boasted it would be big and beautiful, but one of Donald Trump's most controversial promises has become a major crisis for President Biden. Construction on the US-Mexico border wall has been abruptly halted, leaving communities in limbo. The change in administration and more humane immigration policy sparking a massive influx of migrants, many of them children. US correspondent Amelia Adams.
Hoping for a better life, migrants are pouring across America's southern border. Close to 100,000 were apprehended last month.
I guess I should be flattered. People are coming because I'm the nice guy. The truth of the matter is, nothing has changed.
And a record number of children are making the journey alone after President Biden reversed the Trump administration's policy of sending unaccompanied minors back to where they came from. More than 5,000 children are being held in Border Patrol facilities. The president forced to take a tougher stance.
I can say quite clearly, don't come, and what we're in the process of getting set up, don't leave your town or city or community.
John Ladd's 16,000-acre ranch in southeast Arizona straddles the border.
They've cost us millions of dollars in 30 years in damaged fences, water lines. We've had 14 dead bodies on the ranch. I know 3 people have been killed by illegals. The cartel controls both sides of the border.
With Trump in power, Border Patrol picked up around 10 illegal immigrants a month on John's ranch. And now?
And now we're getting 50 a day.
As we're filming, John gets a call. 3 Mexican men have been spotted nearby, a scene that plays out several times a day.
Well, this group has made the journey from Narco, that's a border town. They've somehow made it over or through around the wall. They were picked up by Horse Patrol on this ranch and they'll now be taken to the station for processing.
If the men have a criminal record, they'll stay in the US and be sent to court. If not, they'll be taken straight back across the border. We later learned they'd cut through 30-foot concrete-filled steel bollards.
We're building a beautiful wall, a big one that really works.
It was a polarising promise left incomplete. The Trump administration built 725 kilometres of wall along the US-Mexico border, much of it repairing or replacing old barriers. New sections recently went up through critical conservation and wildlife corridors.
Mammals, birds, even reptiles and amphibians. So what we've seen here is that the border wall effectively negates that connectivity with the potential of, altering the evolutionary history of North America.
Ecologist Miles Trapagan says the construction has done irreversible damage.
There was no attention paid to erosion control, the impact it would have on wildlife, the impact it would have on our water resources. Quite simply, this was the most expensive re-election campaign prop that America has ever seen.
Build that wall! Build that wall! Build that wall!
After vowing Mexico would pay for construction, President Trump diverted $15 billion from the Defense Department. The project scuttled on Joe Biden's first day in office as he ordered a 60-day pause and review.
President Biden has vowed not to build another foot of this wall. It's likely his government will focus on technology, infrared cameras, sensors and lights to secure the border. He's also pledged to work with Central American countries on the issues causing people to flee, gangs, violence, natural disasters. But those discussions and any potential policies or aid will take time.
The construction pause has now expired, and there's been no clear directive from the White House on what happens next.
If there's nothing here, you're going to have truckloads of people and drugs come through with nothing to slow them down.
In Narco, Arizona, Amelia Adams, 9 News.
Well, Brazil could soon have a world record nobody wants. Its COVID daily death toll of 2,400 is expected to grow to 4,000 within the next few months and reach a total of 500,000 mid-year. By the end of the year, the South American nation is tipped to pass the United States as far as virus fatalities goes. Well, it is the musical that has captured the world's attention, honoured with a record-breaking list of awards, even receiving the Pulitzer Prize. But Hamilton has, of course, been unable to run throughout the past year because of COVID, except for here in Australia, the official opening in Sydney last night. Mike Dalton has more.
It's the biggest stage show in the world, and the only place in the world to now see it on stage is in Australia. Hamilton opened in Sydney last night, and Nine's entertainment editor Richard Wilkins found those on the red carpet were ecstatic to see a full house and live theatre back.
To be able to sit actually, maybe rubbing shoulders with somebody, it's so fantastic.
Sitting next to a stranger in a room full of people you don't know.
So great.
To be in a room full of people. Strangers laughing and feeling all the joy that theatre can bring us. I think I'm going to cry.
The idea of that there is a show on, that it's at full capacity. I've got my mask ready to go.
And now being able to gather here with a whole lot of people and watch a show it feels good.
Securing Hamilton's run in Australia is hoped to drive domestic tourism to the harbour city.
But what's great about events like this, it's going to encourage people to travel, and the cities need people to travel.
You can't see it anywhere else in the world except for Sydney, and that says a lot. And I'm so proud of the fact that all of us have worked hard to make it happen.
It's just terrific to have a night out here in Sydney. I'm really looking forward to it.
The American musical has dominated magazine covers and awards ceremonies in the US since its premiere in 2015.
That audiences here in Sydney are responding to the show with just as much love and enthusiasm as they did in London, as they do in New York, as they did in Los Angeles.
What's your name, man? Alexander Hamilton.
Mike Dalton, 9 News.
Oh, it's great to see, isn't it? All right, Madeline Slattery is with us now with the latest on the weather, and most of the country has been dry today, Maddie.
That's right, Alicia. After the catastrophic rain of the past week, we're now in a run of dry and settled conditions. A high-pressure system is extending across much of the mainland, with only the top end and Tasmania experiencing any significant rain today. Sydney has had a dry and warm Sunday, with the city reaching 27 degrees, and after a showery Saturday, Melbourne's had to return to dry conditions with a cooler top of 20. Tomorrow, the cold front in the south will clip the east coast of Victoria, but otherwise it'll be another mild and settled day for much of the country. The Easter holidays are just around the corner, and I'll have that all-important forecast later in the Bulletin, Alicia.
All right, Maddie, we look forward to it. We'll see you very soon. The victim of an ambush killing on a Victorian highway revealed. That's next. Plus, thousands take over capital city streets demanding a better life for refugees. And the Ever Given's long-lost namesake steals the spotlight from the Suez Canal.
On a blockbuster.
As the hunt continues for the gunman responsible for an execution-style killing on one of Geelong's busiest roads, the victim's identity has emerged. Daniel Eagle was shot as he sat in the wreckage of a car that crashed into an Australia Post truck on the Princes Highway early yesterday morning. The 43-year-old died at the scene. 2 other people were injured. A mother and her 2 daughters were thankfully on holidays when their home in Sydney's west burst into flames. Neighbours rushed to contain the blaze at Emu Plains late yesterday. More than 30 firefighters arrived shortly after. It is unclear at this stage what started it. Well, thousands marching across the nation have demanded the immediate release of refugees into the community. They've used Palm Sunday rallies as their platform, claiming the Morrison government is illegally detaining those seeking asylum. Laura Turner was there.
Fighting for a community that wants to be Australian.
Free the refugees!
But they say they're up against the powers that be.
These people are locked in camps, so they can't stand up for themselves.
On the lawn of Melbourne's State Library, a message for Peter Dutton.
Peter Dutton has the power to release the refugees with the stroke of a signature.
I'm ashamed of the country, to be frank, for doing this kind of thing. I think it reflects badly on us all that we lock people up who are merely seeking to come here and get better lives.
Refugees themselves in the crowd arguing this is a country they just want to contribute to.
I want to become a human rights lawyer and help people and make sure the justice is served.
Their stories, they say, should transcend politics.
I haven't seen my kids from 9 years.
9 years you've not seen your children. The Palm Sunday event, a time churches get political.
We think it is 8 years for some that are incarcerated is just too long. It's just not humane.
This is a movement that says it's fed up and frustrated with being ignored. They're on the move in almost every state and territory today. They want the attention of not just politicians, but they say the younger generation as well.
Right now, young generation to grow up to a position of power and they will then, I think, call a royal commission.
The movement calling for the immediate release of all refugees and for permanent visas to be granted.
Refugees are welcome here. Erase them, no fear.
Laura Turner, 9 News.
Slight progress has been made to free the ship blocking one of the world's busiest trade routes. Its stern and rudder moving after dredgers shifted 20,000 tonnes of sand. Suez Canal officials fear they may need to take out the bow to reduce the weight, but this project alone could take days. The canal chief has now conceded human error may be partially to blame for the blockage after initially suggesting wind and a sandstorm. It's emblazoned with the same name as that ship stuck in the Suez Canal, and this truck has ended up in a similar predicament in China. The vehicle crashed on a busy highway in the country's east, coming to a rest at a similar 45-degree angle and snarling peak hour traffic. One military veteran every 2 weeks is losing their life to suicide in a crisis that has united 2 former soldiers turned politicians to call for a royal commission. Phil Thompson and Gavin Pearce, who both suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder and have buried mates, say enough is enough. Jonathan Kersley with the story.
In step and shoulder to shoulder, Gavin Pearce and Phil Thompson are like brothers in arms.
What was the question?
He's got the retention span of an indoor plant.
But their humour masks pain. The 2 MPs are on a mission to protect the lives of people like them, people who have served on the front line.
I want our mates to stop dying. I want to stop going to funerals. I want mums to stop burying their sons.
They have their own battle scars. Both suffer post-traumatic stress disorder and have lost mates. Gavin Pearce was the Sergeant Major of his unit. He spent 20 years in the military, on one occasion helping arrange the funeral for one of his men who took his own life.
And then you pack that kid's room up, and you stuff up. And then you go to the funeral director and you dress that young bloke in his polyester uniform.
The burden of losing soldiers he led weighs heavy.
And I'll never, ever, till the day I die, forget the look in that mother's eyes when we gave her a flag to replace her son.
Phil Thompson served in Afghanistan. He was injured in an IED blast, but he says it's losing mates to what he calls the black hole that hurts most.
Every day I think how we could have done something better.
Gavin and Phil want the tears to stop and the answers to start. On average, one veteran takes their own life every 2 weeks. These military men turned politicians say the time is right for a royal commission into veteran suicide.
I don't think any government has done a good enough job. I don't. I think we try, we all try, but we live it every day, so that's why we're here.
They want more care for veterans and their families after service, assistance to find work and help them all adjust to life away from the military.
Meaning, having something meaningful, have something to wake up and want to do, have something purpose, something to love.
This week, Phil and Gavin shed tears in Parliament.
I'm sorry for what you've had to go through.
Embracing each other, addressing the House, speaking of the torment and the pain they feel.
That I don't mention that for pity. I mention that to let all veterans know that yes, you may suffer the same thing that I suffer, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
And the black hole in my heart for my 10 mates that have died is nowhere near to the pain that you must have been enduring this whole time.
They feel the anguish of those left behind.
I'm sorry for every mother that has had to bury their son.
Among them, Julianne Finney, whose son David took his own life 2 years ago.
And I'm just as proud of him today as I was when he was living.
She's campaigned for a royal commission and this week took her plea back to Parliament House.
If you're a serving member now, hold on, we're getting there.
The Prime Minister has preferred the option of a long-standing commission but has not ruled out a royal commission running alongside it. These 2 men say for them and the families of so many soldiers lost to suicide, it would be a fitting salute, and they're vowing to march on this issue together forever.
He's one of the brothers, you know, he's family to me.
And I'll never leave him, and I'll never leave those diggers that I led, you know, during my time.
Jonathan Kersley, 9 News.
A fisherman's been swept off rocks in Victoria. The desperate search for him in just a moment. Plus, the country that's abolished the 5-day work week. And healing through music, a brother's song to his sibling killed in the police freeway tragedy.
This week, we have your complete Easter holiday getaway guide. Why waiting to the last minute to book isn't always a bad idea.
Plus, each day we're giving away extraordinary prizes, a trip to Cairns, shopping sprees at BCF and Fun, and Mitre 10, free fuel and a year's supply of chocolate. Whoa, count me in.
A fisherman is missing fear drowned after being washed off rocks at Kilcunda, south of Melbourne this morning.
About 4 or 5 witnesses have seen the male on the rocks, seen the wave come through, and next minute the wave has taken the male off the rocks.
An air and sea search for the man was called off this afternoon, but a ground operation is continuing. The brother of a constable killed on Melbourne's Eastern Freeway almost 12 months ago has released a song paying tribute to his sibling and his fallen colleagues. Alex Presney told Lana Murphy he taught himself guitar in the months following Josh's death as a way of feeling connected to the talented musician.
His face is seared into the memories of every Victorian, but only those who knew Josh Presney remember his sound. For almost 12 months, the silence has been deafening. His legacy defined by a painfully public and premature death alongside 3 of his colleagues. But now his brother, Alex Presney, is bringing the music back.
His guitars fell silent, but we chose not to.
Will I be alone? Oh, when I see you rise once more, every piece of you in me, I see you on the road.
Just a Dream is a song penned for Josh and every person stumbling through the fog of grief. The 28-year-old was the music fanatic of the family, but this was written by Alex. Traditionally a drummer, he'd always left the strings to the expert.
I, in a way, owed it to Josh to try and pick up his craft. My days of grieving and healing was playing the guitar, and it felt good.
Recorded in the home of their friend James Dinopoulos, the track was released this week.
Holding back the tears, but I don't think I'm brave enough.
On the cover, Alex grips his big brother's signature axe.
I think he'd be bopping to it. I think he'd really like the guitar solo. It's just an awesome way to feel connected to Josh, to Alex, and yeah, really spread that message of, love, healing.
April 22 will mark a year since Josh was killed. And while Alex is slowly learning to live with the loss, he knows he's never truly alone.
And I watch as the rain comes down. It's your song and you sing it out loud.
If he can't make a sound through guitars and music, he's doing it through the elements, through thunder, lightning, rain. That's him saying, awesome. Because it's stopped raining now, hasn't it?
Soon you'll be at home when you're walking through the door.
Lana Murphy, 9 News.
Spain is cutting its official working week to 4 days for the next 3 years in a bid to stamp out coronavirus outbreaks. Using almost $80 million from the European Union COVID Recovery Fund, it plans to subsidise businesses for the extra costs the change will incur. It's also hoped the longer weekends will boost local tourism and entertainment dollars, a backbone, of course, for the Spanish economy. A crowning moment for Prince William, who's earned the dubious honour of being the world's sexiest bald man. That's according to an online study by a cosmetic company. He might not relish the new title, but after all, he will one day be heir to the throne. See what I did there? All right, Clint Dunaway is here now with a look ahead at tonight's sport.
I liked it. Thanks so much, Alicia. Coming up in sport, more COVID headaches for the AFL. The Lions, they're not going anywhere fast. Plus, Dusty's day out while the Bont ices it for the Dogs. And no joy for Mitchell as the Tigers find their groove.
He's one of the...
This Sports Report brought to you by Sportsbet's Elite Average Games. Download the app today and make it look easy with Sportsbet.
Marcus Bontempelli has sealed a fighting victory for the Western Bulldogs over West Coast at Marvel Stadium. In a game of wild momentum swings, the Doggies held their nerve in a tense final term to win it by 7 points. Ed Woolley has the highlights.
This was the moment that sent Dogs fans into raptures.
To seal the game, he's got it! The Dogs are going to win!
Wild scenes of celebration at Marvel Stadium after an absolute classic. Earlier, Liam Ryan wasted little time making his presence felt.
One way, back the other. Liam Ryan's got it!
A few other familiar names were in the thick of things.
Ray's gone down. He's courageous, Ray.
Some more graceful than others. Marcus Bontempelli leading the Dogs' charge.
Bontempelli wants the ball and he wants to go.
But Josh Kennedy was also busy with 4 goals before three-quarter time. The Eagles up by 12 points at that final change.
It just doesn't get any better than that.
But the momentum shifted when Nick Naitanui was forced off after a poke to the eye. Oscar Allen also nursing a sore shoulder following this tumble. The Dogs booting 5 goals to 2 in the most dramatic of final terms.
To give the Dogs the lead back, he has.
Richmond, meanwhile, were red-hot favourites, and with good reason.
Jack played Rover and played it well.
But after the Tigers booted the opening 3 goals, the Hawks at least held their own.
We've seen this a few times on the MCG over the years.
The difference, for the most part, not one of effort, but simply class.
It's Dustin Martin.
The Hawks' ability not always matching their ambition, as Dusty capped 28 disposals with a number of assists in a 29-point win.
And he wants to share the love some more.
Ayrton Woolley, 9 News.
Still on the AFL and the Brisbane Lions, they remain in limbo tonight with Thursday night showdown with Collingwood at the Gabba now in jeopardy. Alicia Mewling has the latest on this story for us. Alicia, the Lions, they're a bit stuck tonight.
Clint, a lot of scenarios for the AFL to work through over the next few days. Chief among them, whether the Lions just stay here in Victoria and play that Thursday night clash against Collingwood in Melbourne. Now, 9 News can reveal that footy boss Gillon McLachlan paid the club a personal visit to their hotel this morning, basically just to thank them for their patience. So a crucial 24 hours looms for Gillon McLachlan. In some injury news, Clint, the Bombers, they have a tough few weeks ahead of them. Jai Caldwell in for scans this morning on his injured hamstring, but the big one is midfielder Dylan Shield. Now, the club says he hasn't ruptured his ACL, but he is still facing a number of weeks on the sidelines.
We're 99% sure it's not an ACL, so scan will reveal everything, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Have you had an injury like this before, Dylan?
Yeah, I've had a meniscus before, so it's kind of felt similar, but we'll wait and see.
Finally, Clint, week 1 of the AFLW finals has been locked in, so Collingwood will face off against North Melbourne, while Melbourne host Fremantle. But the Demons, Clint, they will have to do it without their star skipper Daisy Pearce, who has been ruled out for at least a week with an injury of her own. Clint?
Thanks to Alicia Mewling. Rugby league news now, and there's been no joy for Mitchell Pearce in his 300th game. The Tigers spoiling the celebration for the Night Star with what was a 24-20 win. Danica Mason, she watched it unfold. Danica, this will no doubt ease some pressure on coach Michael Maguire.
Yes, it certainly does ease a lot of pressure, especially considering their embarrassing loss to the Roosters just last week, where they went down by 34 points. The Tigers, they came out of the blocks firing. They scored the first try. They led at the break, but with 12 minutes to go, Newcastle stole the lead, but the Tigers, they were not to be denied. David Nufaluma scoring the winning try to secure their first victory of the season.
And Danica, a horrid weekend, it must be said, of injuries across the league. It's prompted calls for an 18th man to be introduced.
Yeah, there were a number of injuries and 7 head knocks as well. So many people are calling for this 18th man, this concussion sub, to be introduced. It is introduced in the lower grades already. But there was a situation last night, because the NRL is so cautious with head knocks, the Cronulla Sharks, they had no players left on their bench for the entire second half of their match, because 3 players had to go off for a head injury assessment and failed that assessment and weren't able to return. It has some opinions divided. However, some people say it's too quick to introduce such a rule. But we'll have to wait and see what the NRL decides.
OK, thanks so much for the update, Danica. A clinical Ash Barty has cruised into the 4th round of the Miami Open. Having limped over the line just 24 hours earlier, the Aussie is starting to look and sound much more confident. Corey Norris reports.
With the sun blaring down in Florida, the defending champion got to work, and Yelena Ostapenko had very few answers as Ash Barty ruled off the last 6 games to progress to the final 16.
It was important today for me to be switched on right from the first ball, and every single point make sure that physically I was ready to run and try and neutralise as best I could.
Daniel Ricciardo has given himself a chance of a podium finish in his new McLaren, qualifying 6th for tomorrow morning's Bahrain Grand Prix.
I know I'm experienced in the sport, but truth is it does take time, and it will take time to get that last few percent.
But it was game on for pole.
Hamilton's on provisional pole. Verstappen beats him by 2/100ths of a second. That's the battle we want to see.
Melbourne Victory avoided a 5th straight A-League loss, sharing the points with Central Coast in a 1-1 draw, while Perth Glory ended a 5-game winless run with a 2-1 victory over Central Coast. In Super Rugby, the Reds remain undefeated while the Waratahs' woes deepen.
He is so dangerous across the park.
Queensland making it 5 from 5 with a record-breaking victory in Sydney. The Perth Wildcats remain at the top of the NBL ladder after an impressive 24-point win over the Sydney Kings.
And now Bryce Cottons downhill, pulls up, over where, got it!
While Chris Goulding starred with 25 points in Melbourne United's thumping win over crosstown rivals Phoenix. And in the NBA, Ben Simmons was held to just 15 points as his 76ers were defeated by the LA Clippers. Corey Norris, 9 News.
And Alicia, that is Sunday night sport for you.
Busy day. All right, Clint, thank you very much for that. All right, it is time to check back in with Maddie now. And how's tomorrow's weather shaping up for us, Maddie?
Well, Alicia, it won't be as nice as today. Both Sydney and Melbourne will take a drop in temperature, and there's a few light showers about as well. I'll have the full forecast for this shorter working week and a look ahead at Easter next.
The biggest blindside.
I don't get it. That's worth getting out of bed for.
Hello again, and a high pressure system is keeping much of the mainland dry today, but a cold front has brought showers to Tasmania, and there's been showers and storms through the top end. It's been mild to warm around Sydney today, with the city reaching 27 degrees, slightly cooler in the west, 24 at Parramatta and 26 at Blacktown. Further out, the warm and dry conditions extended across the state, but there's been a sprinkle of showers through the southeast, although nothing more than a millimetre. Melbourne had a chilly morning with most suburbs dropping to single figures. Yarra Glen got down to 6 degrees and Ferny Creek 8. Then plenty of autumn sunshine pushed most spots to the low 20s. Geelong reached 22. It was an even colder start to the day through inland parts of Victoria, with Rutherglen, Ballarat and Horsham dropping to 5 degrees. Then this afternoon, maximums have been a few degrees below average, mostly the high teens and low 20s through the south, but it warmed up to the mid-20s in the Mallee. Tomorrow, the high will continue to keep most of the country dry, and the showers will clear Tasmania as well. The dry conditions will continue on Tuesday, although onshore winds will push in showers along the New South Wales and Queensland coasts. And they're expected to continue on Wednesday. But tomorrow, there'll be some light showers along the eastern seaboard. The chance of a few millimetres in Brisbane, 27 degrees. But Canberra should stay dry and mostly sunny, 23. Cloudy in Hobart, a top of 18. Sunny skies for Adelaide, 25. And another warm day for Perth, 33. There'll be showers along the New South Wales coast tomorrow, mostly north of Sydney, between 3 and 8 millimetres for Coffs Harbour, along with a chance of a storm. It'll be mostly sunny in the southeast. Bateman's Bay is heading for a top of 23, and in the west, a low of 12 and a sunny top of 25 for Broken Hill. There's the chance of morning fog through Sydney's western suburbs and a few light showers around in the morning and again in the evening, but nothing more than a few millimetres, a top of 24 degrees for the city after an overnight low of 17. There'll be some drizzly showers through southern Victoria tomorrow, but conditions will clear during the afternoon. It should warm up to the mid-20s through the Mallee and Wimmera districts, the high teens and low 20s elsewhere. There's a chance of a shower through Melbourne's eastern suburbs tomorrow, but it will be mostly dry with maximums similar to today. A top of 19 for the city after a low of 13. Then gradually warming up after that with a top of 28 on Thursday and Friday, 31 on Saturday, but cooling down to 18 on Sunday. Sydney's week will also follow an improving trend, 25 by Thursday, 27 on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So it's all looking pretty good for Easter, Alicia.
Yeah, it looks magnificent. All right, Maddie, thank you so much for that. Now, before we go, here's Tom Steinfort with a preview of tonight's 60 Minutes.
Thanks, Alicia. Tonight,
So you're not buying what Meghan is selling?
the palace fights back
I'm flabbergasted.
in an increasingly bitter
He wasn't a saint either.
royal dispute.
There is a real danger to their life.
Plus, taking on a dictator.
It's a criminal enterprise.
The brave parents
They murdered Otto. How can I be quiet?
and the hidden camera sting
10 years undercover.
exposing North Korea's evil.
Alejandro, you happy to start?
Yeah.
That's tonight after Married. Back to you, Alicia.
And that is 9 News this Sunday. I hope you have a great evening. For now, good night.